KWITN, if you're ready.
Maybe again, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us, or if you just tuned in, thank you for joining us. We are here for the last budget presentation this evening, and this is our very own budget, is the City Council budget. So without further ado, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Chris Johnson from the 7th District. I'm the chair of the Finance and Economic Development Committee. Now I will perform a roll call. Do we have Vice Chair Harley?
Present.
Councilmember Oliver?
Present.
Councilmember Walsh? Councilmember. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Field?
Present.
Councilmember Spadola?
Here.
Council President Congo?
Here.
Also in attendance, do we have Councilmember Dixon?
Yes, present.
Councilmember Cabrera? Councilmember Fields?
Present.
Councilmember Darby? Councilmember Gray?
Present.
And Councilmember McCoy.
Here.
All right, I appreciate it. We do have enough for a quorum, so we can proceed. So I believe this time again we have City Council's own budget. I believe doing the City Council budget presentation will be the Chief of Staff, Daniel Walker, and I'm not sure if he'll have someone else assisting him as well. But without further ado, the floor is yours, Chief of Staff Walker.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. For the record, this is Daniel Walker, Chief of Staff of Wilmington City Council. We're actually going to have Marshall Bathnight, who has been integral in leading and pulling our budget together, present, and I will be here to help answer any additional questions and input from council members.
All right. Good evening, honorable members of council and Chief of Staff Walker and the public. I have the pleasure today to present an overview of council's fiscal year 22 proposed budget. First, let me share with you the mission statement. If WITN can put the presentation up, please. Okay, the mission of City Council is to provide a visionary leadership and policy making on quality of life matters, to develop well-researched legislation, to fulfill the critical responsibility of providing the checks and balances on the city government, and also to connect with constituents to identify the needs in the community and to devise strategies to address those needs. City Council is the legislative branch of government. If we can go to the next slide, please. There's 13 elected officials who are part-time, and although it might be part-time, but it seems like they work full-time. It represents 8 districts across the city. It's governed by the city code and the state charter. The primary responsibilities of council is enacting laws, which are ordinances. And one of the primary votes of City Council is the annual operating budget. Another primary responsibility is drafting resolutions. And as I mentioned previously, providing the checks and balances on city government and provide constituent services for city residents. We can go to the next slide. This here is just a chart of some of the main functions of the City Council operations. And this is under the purview of the Chief of Staff, realizing too that the Chief of Staff also have responsibilities. You have the legislative and financial admin support. Under that particular area, they provide support to the council persons. They process your scholarships and fund requests. They draft non-legislative resolutions. They provide legislative and policy research. Then we have WITN and social media. I just want to say that WITN stands for the Wilmington Information Television Network. Under their purview, they work on government programs that best promote the city of Wilmington on television as well as on social media. They provide oversight of WITN's website, which some of those links also link up to the council's website. They focus on news for the city of Wilmington. One of the things that they have recently partnered with Newcastle County for airing their committee and council meetings, which will occur once the pandemic is over with. There's the clerk division. The clerk is the official custodian of the city records and for our legislation. She's our FOIA coordinator. She attests to both the mayor and the president's signature, and there's other duties as well. For the public relations research area, they provide the media support for council. They draft news releases. They have oversight of the Comcast franchise agreement. They work on research, policy, as well as drafting legislative resolutions, as well as will be implementing and putting together the strategic plan for the 108th session of council. Well, let's get down to the numbers as far as what council's budget consists of. City council's proposed budget total $1.8 million. It's up roughly $97,000. Out of the $1.8 million budget, $1.3 million is for personal services. Personal services is your people costs, your salaries, your health care, and your pension costs. And personal services went up slightly, $17,000. Out of the $1.8 million budget, 443 of council's budget is for MS&E. MS&E is referred to as materials, supplies, and equipment. That went up roughly $81,000. If you look at the chart on the far right-hand side, it talks about the $97,000, which is the number our overall budget went up by. Professional fees went up $43,000. We can get to the next page to talk about specifically what that is. And for professional fees, it totaled $184,000, and as I mentioned, it increased $43,000. Some of the items under professional fees for consultants is we have funding in there for redistricting, because this year is the year that redistricting needs to occur. So we have $25,000 slated. It's a possibility we might be able to use some of the funds out of this current year's budget. It just depends on the timing as far as numbers. So we might have the ability to encumber some of our funds out of this year's budget. There's also funding for a governmental affairs strategist. With the governmental affairs strategist, we have roughly $20,000 budgeted. There's the WCAC. We have $15,000 budgeted. For fiscal year 21, there was $50,000. It's anticipated with the $15,000 that we like to have the administration to match $15,000 as well. There's funding for 2 policy fellows for $49,000. In this current year's budget was $29,000. What we wanted to do was to restore the fellows back to the pre-COVID level. There was previously a contract for Baker for $6,000 that was zeroed out. And there was previously a contract pertaining to drafting of non-legislative resolutions for $6,000 that was zeroed out as well.
And sorry, and just to make sure everyone is clear, the Baker contract was for former Mayor Baker as a consultant.
Then on the far right-hand side of the chart, there's legal fees, okay? Legal category, which is a type of professional services. We have a legislative attorney in there for $75,000. So it's anticipated that we might not need the person on a full-time basis because it's for $75,000. It's going to be based upon billable hours and on an as-needed basis. Okay. Were there any questions pertaining to the professional fees? Okay. If we can go back to the previous slide, page 6, slide number 6. So as I was talking about the overall $97,000 that our budget increased by, I just talked about the $43,000. In community activities, that went up $38,000. That was to restore councilpersons funding back to the pre-COVID level to $10,000 each. Right now is $7,000 each. Temp salaries increased $22,000, and that was to restore the part-time office receptionists back to the pre-COVID level level, because we know at some point soon this building is going to open, so we need to make sure that we have enough available resources to handle. And regular salaries was reduced by $15,000. If we go to slide number 8, slide number 8 talks about the $1.3 million in personal services. As I previously mentioned, that's your people costs, your salaries, and your health care. Within personal services, there were 2 job title changes in the general fund. The strategy and policy director position job title was changed to chief financial officer and senior legislative advisor. There's no change in salary. The legislative and community director, the job title was changed to legislative and public relations director, no change in salary. And the purpose of those job titles is so that it's more in line to what those individuals do. Temp salaries total $60,000. I mentioned on the other slide that it went up about $22,000. Also, within our professional, within personal services, we still have continued funding of $15,000 for professional staff development that will be based upon staff performance. And this $1.3 million in personal services, it funds 19 positions, 13 councilpersons, and 6 FTEs, which is full-time equivalent positions. If we can go to the next slide. I had mentioned that out of council's $1.8 million budget, that $443,000 is for MS&E, and that went up $81,000. And I just want to reiterate, out of that $443,000, $184,000 is for professional services, which we discussed on slide number 7. $196,000 is for community activities. That's up $38,000. I had mentioned on a previous slide that was due to council members' funds going up by to $10,000 each from $7,000. Okay, so within the community activities category, you have $130,000. That's to $10,000 for all 13 council persons. There's $10,000 budgeted for parades and festivals. We want to make sure that we have coverage for sponsorship and support. There's $8,000 for sponsorships for ads, tickets. There's $22,000 allocated for community services. That's support for various programs and activities. Within that $22,000, there is to be a junior city council program. So some of that funding will help for that, a minimal amount. There's also $26,000 budgeted in miscellaneous projects for grants. There's $15,000 for the WECEC, which is the Wilmington Early Care Education Council. There's $11,000 in other grants, which consists of $7,000 to the Wilmington Library, $2,000 to the Delaware Children Museum, and $2,000 to First Education Golf. If we can go, oh, thank you. I just want to mention too, there's other things in our budgets, so I just want council to know that there's still continued funding for travel. There's $9,000 in the travel account line. We have funds in there for membership and registration to the tune of $15,000. There's food in the budget for money in the budget for food for $6,000, because we know we're going to be back here in the building at some point, and we just need to be able to plan to be able to pay for those services. There's $16,500 for printing and advertising, and a good chunk of that cost is for the city code supplements, which is a requirement of the for the city clerk. So we do have to provide that at a cost. If we can go to the, okay, so this next slide just shows city council's budget, and all it just shows is that majority of our budget, 75% of our budget is people costs, 24% is your MS&A. Okay, next is, I want to talk about the KTV funds. KTV funds, I just want to share for everyone is it pertains to WITN. WITN is not funded from the general fund. WITN is funded from revenues that we receive from the Comcast franchise fees. I just want to acknowledge that WITN is an award-winning team. And Daniel, I'm going to defer to you because I just know they recently received some awards. I believe we can disclose that now.
We can, yes. They have received some first place awards, and they are on the next step, actually, to a national awards program to see if we can get those awards as well. So WITN has done some pretty great work, and we'll be happy to share the products that receive those awards with the council members now that we can publicly disclose that.
WITN's proposed budget total $1 million. It's up slightly, $35,000. Out of the $1 million budget, $823,000 is for personal services costs, for salaries, healthcare. Out of the $823,000, there's $15,000 budgeted for temps for freelancers. There's also $15,000 budgeted for staff professional development. There was one title change. The digital media and web content producer was changed to a digital media and web content coordinator. There was not a salary change. This $823,000 also funds 9 full-time positions. Also within their budget, there's $167,000 for MS&E, which is referred to as material, supplies, and equipment. Some of the major items in there is there's roughly $38,500 in professional fees. This here is a new cost. Of that $38,500, $18,500 is for a franchise fee audit of our Comcast franchise fees. Our Comcast contract is about to expire in 2 years. The city auditor reached out to us, and as part of their fiscal year 22 audit plan is that they would like to be able to audit our franchise fees, and they will hire an outside expert to be able to audit our franchise fees. In addition, there's $20,000 that was put aside for a legal expert that's in the telecommunications field, because as I mentioned, our franchise agreement expires in 2 years. It typically takes 2 years to negotiate the contract, and we need someone on board that's in telecommunications to tell us now what we even need to be looking for to even put in a contract. For example, when we did this contract back in like 2009, we had no way of knowing that Wi-Fi had even exist. So we need someone who was forward thinking, who's expert in this field to be able to best guide the city so we can get a well futuristic franchise agreement. It doesn't mean that it'd be with Comcast, it'd be based upon whoever submits the application and goes through the process.
And I have Ms. Basson, I have a question follow up on that for so the franchise fees, and I know there's a separate chart going into this new agreement. I mean, it's not a given that we even have to do an agreement, is there?
Well, yes, we do have to do agreement. There is a section within our code that mandates that franchising, when it comes to the cable services, that is a requirement to be done. So that is something that is written in our code.
Okay. Okay. Even though
So as far as
changes, the cable is different than it was 10 years ago.
yes.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we'll look at, is once we get this expert that's in telecommunications, we're going to want them to not only work on the franchise agreement, but we're going to want them to also advise us what we need to do to tweak our code to be able to address what you just said, because that also happened under the last session. I mean, when the last time the franchise agreement was done. So things do change because this year was a 12-year contract. I'm not saying the next one will be 12, but we do need that forward thinking. And so yes, there will be some changes to our code.
And Chairman Johnson, to what I think is the implied part of your question, is the next agreement doesn't necessarily have to happen with the same provider.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay.
And I just want to be clear too, and to just to add on too, is the last time it was never intended to be like one provider. Like our provider now is Comcast. Verizon did submit an application, but we welcome competition. We want competition in our city. But Verizon submitted their application, then they pulled their application. I know initially they wanted to be selective in their process as far as where they can do cable in the city. But, I just wanted to share that we want competition. We want other people other than Comcast. And this here does go out, so that other entities, cable services can provide. So, we welcome that.
Okay. So that's going to be a future conversation. I guess this will mold into the CATV committee and this will be discussed, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
I just want to mention too, within WITN's budget, we do have $20,000 for the LARO contract, which is an annual funds that we always have set aside. There's $18,000 for the Swagit contract, which is for the streaming services to be able to stream our meetings and services. There's $20,000 budgeted for various equipment needs that WITN needs during the year. There's $15,000 budgeted for parking. There's $21,000 budgeted for subscriptions. One thing I do want to point out is the consultant line decreased by $60,000 because the public relations contract was removed. So that did provide savings. If we can go to the next slide. This next slide is just a chart of our Comcast franchise fees. Back in 2017, we was as high as $1.2 million. For fiscal year 20, we received $1,027,000. So I mentioned to you that WITN's proposed budget is $1 million. So now we are at a tipping point where WITN's budget is now equaling out to the amount of revenues. So we just need to be, very cautious, because if the expenditures exceed the revenues, then we would need to have conversation about, what are the next steps? Meaning, does that mean, we target, using funds for the general fund, but that'd be like an offside conversation. But one of the good things is if we go to the next slide.
Marshall, I believe Council
think
President
has a question. And President Congo, sorry, real quick before you ask your question, one thing I wanted to add is the this chart that Ms. Bassnight was just presenting sort of undergirds the reason why we need the franchise agreement attorney and why the audit is so crucial, because we don't want to leave any money on the table, and having experts in their field to help us better understand what's coming could also result in some additional help. President Congo, I know you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. First, I just want to thank everyone on staff, WITN, and on the 9th floor, just for getting off to a great start with this this session. I look forward to growing with all of you. I do have a couple of questions. Can you speak to, for council's budget, For the 9K in travel, and then for WITN's budget, the 15K in parking. Can you explain that to me, please?
Yeah, so the 15K in parking is for the 9 positions in WITN so they can have parking. Staff on the 9th floor, they have parking in the city county building, which the administration pays for that out of the public works department budget. WITN used to previously park on the street, but due to safety concerns and due to equipment needs, we needed to find them parking in the building. They didn't have parking here in this building, so we do have parking for them at the DoubleTree. So I want to say that started probably about like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
As far as the funds for travel, that number was cut immensely last year due to COVID. So we kept the number the same. So the money in the travel account line, it'll be for council members who might want to attend various conferences, and also for professional development for staff on the 9th floor who might need to attend various conferences. If you look at our budget line now, as far as the actuals, no one has gone anywhere, but we're just trying to have something in there. We're trying to assume that this building will be open and things will be back to the norm to some extent, because we didn't put the amount of number, the number that we normally would put in there.
Has that training been virtual over the last year? Or
Well,
is
the thing
just-
about it is we haven't done any training. We haven't done like any training, but there could be virtual trainings that could be looked into. I'm just not sure yet, like what's going to happen when things are almost back to the norm, meaning when we open back up, which will be sometime in fiscal year 2022, because that's from July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. So other national conferences, such as the National League of Cities, such as GFOA, which is typically in different cities, they might do virtual, but then again, they might go back to having actual conferences because, it generates revenues for those cities. So, so that's the reason that
All right,
number's there is not to the tune of what it has been in the past.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This chart here is our organization chart. And I just want to mention, if you look at the items in red, we do have 3 vacancies in WITN. One is for a senior producer vacancy. There's the vacant producer position, and there's the vacant digital media and web content creator position. The part-time office receptionist, although it is part-time, that is vacant because number one, we're not here in the building, so we don't need them like right now. But for fiscal year 2022, once we're back here, we'd like to be able to work like as the norm and to be able to have someone at the front desk.
I have a few questions, Marshall, just to kind of looking at the total organization chart. I want to circle back to, I guess, some major areas, because it seems like the council budget relatively is flat, minus with a few exceptions. It's not huge increases. Just wanted to go into like the government consultant. How do you see the government consultant working in conjunction with our policy team? Like what would that person's role be?
Hi, Councilman Johnson. This is Daniel Walker. So I think a few things as far as the government consultant is concerned. The first part is with the you sort of hit the assumption on the head, working in conjunction with the policy team, which means we need a policy agenda. And I don't see us bringing on a government consultant without following the process of developing that policy agenda, which would usually be determined through the strategic planning process. So the staff here on the 9th floor have been having conversations about the strategic planning process for this session, the 108th session of council, with President Congo, who has indicated he would like us to move quickly with getting something propped up so that we can have some guidance where council is going to go as we seek to rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic. What we imagine the government consultant doing is helping the policy team, primarily our legislative and public relations director, to prop up that strategic plan so that we as a council have a compass, a guide for what we want to do for our community. That conversation does not happen in a vacuum. And so it's not just with the policy team, but also, which I know a lot of council members value and I value, certainly, is community input, stakeholder engagement and participation. And so the government consultant, which is largely going to be focused on helping us interface with other government entities, school boards, state leaders, federal delegation leaders as well, will be a part of the discussion on the strategic plan and helping us map out which items need to go where. So it's important for us to understand sort of the levels of government and the levers of government, and that person will help be able to direct us in that way. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, so it's not I guess the word lobbyist has been thrown around. It's not a lobbyist. It's a strategic planning consultant. Is that
correct? At least for the first iteration of this, because in order to be a lobbyist, you need to have something to lobby for. And so the government consultant, which we think would largely work in conjunction with us, would be sort of in that same field, but it's first helping us to develop a plan and priority. And then the conversation is how do we execute and implement?
Okay, now currently in any part of city government, is there any other person or entity or lobbyist that currently does this or can handle this process?
So you heard earlier, the mayor's administration does have a lobbyist, a contracted lobbyist on staff. Well, not on staff, but on contract. There is no other lobbyist. We firmly see a potential lobbyist working in conjunction with the administration, but primarily helping to push forward a strategic plan of council. When I came on staff, I reviewed the last strategic plan and the progress reports that went along with those strategic plans. And a large portion of those strategic plans were resolutions that dealt with other government entities. And so council did its due diligence in putting these resolutions out there, but a lot of those resolutions weren't acted on by the other entities that have the jurisdictional authority to implement those resolutions. So we're hoping that changes this year.
Okay, so it's more to follow through because, so it seems like, so say we put a ban, so say recreational marijuana, like we put a resolution that says we should support that in the past, and I guess this example CDC as well, gun violence prevention. There's been no follow-up by the city at the other levels to make sure that we actually can achieve that goal. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say there's been no follow-up, but I would say that
not significant
resolutions are a priority of council, and so sometimes the priorities, fall where priorities fall. But if council passes a resolution, the hope is that they have some say in the other government entities implementing and following through with that.
Got it. Okay, that's clear. All right, Council Member Oliver, I believe you're up first.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to piggyback off of that strategic plan that we had in 107. I know we put a lot of time and money into it, So I'm wondering, and that is, that does cover everything. So I'm wondering, why are we reinventing the wheel as far as strategic plan and not just working off of that? Because it covers everything throughout the city, because we did a survey, we had some specialists come in, we had research done. So I think for us, the strategic plan, it's already in effect. I just think we need to just work off of it. Maybe, changed it to 108, maybe change a little design, but that's everything that's in the ballpark. That's what council came up with. That's what the researchers came up with, and from UD, and some people from me and researchers in the building. So I'm wondering, why do we have to do a whole nother one?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilwoman Oliver. And a large part of that is that traditionally or historically, strategic plans in most cases are updated somewhere between a 3, depending on the industry you're in, somewhere between a 3, 5, or 7-year in 7-year intervals. And so the strategic plan that was done under the 107, to your point, was indeed comprehensive, was indeed based in those community conversations that were had, and it's indeed still in effect. It actually runs through the end of 2021. Right. Now what we're looking to do is put something in effect from 2022 on through the next session of council. And I can only assume, but some of the priorities are possibly going to remain the same, given that there's still a lot of work to be done in the original strategic plan, and we understand sort of what the community's been calling for. The instance of why update is because we're in a whole new ballpark with the COVID-19 pandemic, and our response is going to have to be different if we're going to rebound from that. And so we're not throwing it, we're not shelving it, but what we're doing is we're hoping to expand upon the work that was laid in the 107.
Okay, follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Okay, no, I agree with Chief of Staff. So basically saying we may add or subtract some things that's currently already there, because like you said, I never believe in some people doing a whole bunch of work and individuals coming in, wiping out and starting over, and we already have a platform. So as you stated, am I correct to hear you say we may just add and subtract some things, because like you said, due to COVID, some of the things we may have to expand on that plan, but some of the foundation is already there. That's where I was going.
Correct. I think there is a foundation in that plan. This sort of process will be updating that plan to reflect current situations. And in some cases, there may be portions that are, to your point, entirely different based off of what current community conversations reveal.
Thank you. I just wanted one last follow-up, just so you know, because we didn't really get a chance to even really utilize it because it came in towards the middle and end. So I was looking, I guess some of it is still fresh, but as you said, due to COVID, everything has changed. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to, and I don't know what the term was anymore. We started out discussing a lobbyist. Am I to understand that position, consultant position term has been changed?
Good question. So the overarching term that we've been utilizing has been lobbyist or government affairs consultant. And they're sort of used interchangeably. And so, but, based off of conversations that I've had, that Marshall has had as well, we really feel like making sure we have a clear process is important. One, for selecting this person, whoever it may be, but also two, for making sure that they're not just coming on to come on, that there are really clear guidelines on what council is going to be looking for. So the lobbyist and government affairs, term has been used interchangeably, but they're sort of the same thing. And what I also want to note is this possible policy help that we are proposing may not be the same as the person who implements it based off of how those conversations go.
Thank you. Follow-up, please.
Yes, please.
Well, when you described it initially, you used a lot of soft terms like prop up. So do we have skills that we want this governmental affairs consultant to have? Do we have an outline of what type of skills? I understand everyone keeps repeating that we're going to have a plan first and priorities first. I understand that, but I want to know, do we have definite skills that we're looking for in a governmental affairs consultant?
I definitely do have a few skills that I think are important for someone in that role or who may get this potential contract. But as far as an exhaustive list, I would have to say that's still in creation based off of what we examine the need to be.
And will that be a determination that council will be making, what type of skills we think the person should have? Like, do you want them to have a license, like you said, to be a lobbyist? Or can we have someone that isn't a registered lobbyist, but has skills in governmental affairs?
Yeah, well, the good thing is a license to lobby is sort of easy to, not easy, but it's not as much of a tedious, strenuous process than some other licenses in government. But certainly conversations will be had with council members around the necessity of what a person may need to have in order to carry out the vision.
Thank you.
I believe it's Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you for adding me to the roll too, because I'm back now. I want to gather my thoughts on this because I think you know I'm very passionate about this. We are a part-time council, like every other council in the state of Delaware. The full-time people representing us is the mayor. And it isn't a lobbyist for the mayor, it's a lobbyist for the city of Wilmington, which includes city council. We have no business getting into or being represented by a lobbyist or a government affairs person. I'm looking at this as almost another fleecing of the taxpayers. Here is another person that we're trying to add onto an employment list that at some point, how are we going to keep sustaining the people that we have employed either by consultants or by hardline items in the city of Wilmington? This is ridiculous. If you're a city council member and you want to have a say in lobbying an issue for the city of Wilmington, you sit down with the mayor, you ask to meet with the lobbyist and sit down with them, tell them what you want and what you're trying to, what your goal is, or you pick up the phone and call every representative that might be interested in something that you have, or you go down to Dover and talk to them. I've been a lobbyist 3 separate times in my adult career. It takes all of 3 minutes to become one. It's not some secretive big occupation that one gets. They just want to know who you are, whether or not you have money to spend, and what you're doing down there. It is not a big deal, but it is a big deal when we're trying to add it as just another position for a part-time council. I am so against this. It just upsets me so much that we're even considering something like this when there are so many resources right at our fingertips that we can call lobbyist or government affairs representative. And that's my 2 cents for right now.
All right, Councilmember Fields.
Mr. Fields.
Yes, Brigida Fields. Are you there? Okay, well, while we wait for Councilmember Fields, Brigida Fields, we'll move to Councilmember Darby. I believe she's next on the list.
Well, here I am.
Oh,
I'm here.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Fields.
So I'm here.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I have two questions. So my first question is, if we are considering, and what's the term again? I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. The
Government affairs, consultants,
Consultant.
lobbyists.
Okay.
They're used interchangeably, but a consultant, yes.
Okay, but a consultant. So we're talking about a consultant for, we're talking a governmental consultant, and we're talking about a consultant for the redistricting. Let me ask you this: when we're talking about these consultants, are they coming from a reputable consulting firm, or are you talking about just getting someone that says they can do this? That's my first question. Number two, I think Council Member Gray kind of hit it on the nose. Are they certified, licensed, and and what's the process? Is it a voting thing? Are they appointed? I mean, like these are some things that I would like to know before we even move forward with this, because I'm gonna just say it. I could see this being this could be a mess, because now it's okay. I'm going to tell my friend that they can be a consultant now, and I'm not here for that. If you're going to consult and we're going to pay these people to do what they're supposed to do, I want them to be certified. I don't want this to be a buddy system type thing. I want them to be certified, know what they're doing, and make sure that we get the work done. If we're going to utilize our taxpayers' money to do what we're asking them to do. And that's all I have to say. So I want to make sure that this whole process is very clear. And we do need, this is what I want. I would like to have a detailed description of what these consultants are supposed to do. I think it's going to be beneficial, and we all talk about transparency, being open, being honest. Well, let's be transparent, and let's make sure that we're picking the right people for the right positions to consult the 108. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilwoman Fields, I second your sentiments entirely. Two things about that. So yes, there is a consultant for redistricting. Something we need to redistrict. That's mandated by charter that we redistrict. And looking at experts in that field is important. So that's one consultant. The other consulting, yes, is this other consultant we're talking about in the government affairs field. For both of these consultants, I can tell you right now, I personally and deeply believe that metrics, performance measures, and expectations are important for consultants. I have worked with consultants before who have been great, and I have worked with consultants before who were just given a position, like you said, because they were friends with somebody. And I think that's not okay. And I don't think that should play, because this is taxpayer money. To your point about the certification, as I stated with Councilwoman Gray, the certification process for a lobbyist is just is a registration. It's not as tedious. To put a finer point on it, and I think Councilwoman Walsh alluded to it during her conversations, it is sort of an application you fill out. They just want to prove you are who you say you are. What we'll be looking for is someone who is already registered with the state of Delaware. Indeed, if they're not, someone who has had a proven track record of doing this work before. So for any consultant, they will be on a contract. And in this contract, it will stipulate, outline, and discuss their expectations, their metrics, and their performance goals. I think that's vital for contracts. As far as the voting mechanism that you discussed, professional services does not have to go through a vote process. So, and the only signature that it would be requiring would be that of council president. But he has already indicated in previous meetings his openness and willingness to work with council and make sure everyone is included. So at that time, it would be something that we would have a conversation with President Congo about the best way to move forward in his eyes, in that spirit of transparency and honesty that you mentioned. To the other point around a detailed description, we can certainly provide that to you as we move forward in this process, and all council members will receive a detailed description about what any one of these possible consultants would be doing. This is not a matter of nepotism, but a matter of necessity and trying to move the work forward.
And if I may, I just want to add on to one thing too, is like, as Daniel mentioned, I mean, redistricting is a requirement. When it was last done in 2010 and 2000, I mean, there was like attorney like that worked on it. So if it's determined, like once we get our legislative like attorney, I mean, if that's something that like they have like the expertise on, you know, we can tap into that. But we need to have some type of place marker just in case. I just wanted to mention that as well.
No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. I apologize. I didn't say that we didn't need the consultant for the redistricting. I know that is very important, and it has to be done. But we need a qualified person. And if you said it has to be a lawyer, I want a lawyer that has won some cases, and I need someone that is very thorough and that knows exactly what they're doing. I'm just going to be very upfront and I'm going to be honest about it. Everybody else got a chance to say what they wanted to say. I'm going to say what I need to say. I want someone thorough. I want someone that is proficient. I want someone that has numbers. I want someone that knows how to deal with numbers. So that goes back to, again, transparency, being open, and giving everybody the opportunity to look at these consultants as they come in. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I can guarantee that is exactly what we're going to do.
Or they go to Councilmember Darby.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I want to say that I am in support of a governmental affair person, lobbyist, whatever way we want to call this position that is coming up. But I also do agree qualifications matter. I think the process should go through like any other process of hiring someone, right? And getting them on board. But some of the key reasons why I think it's important for us to have a lobbyist and why we aren't able to use the mayor's lobbyist is that someone who is hired or appointed by the mayor is indebted to them. Either way you want to look at it, it's whoever hires and fires you, right? So I feel like it's really biased. So I feel like we need to have our own lobbyists lobbying for what we need to move forward as a city council. Other city councils throughout the country have lobbyists who goes to other governments to make sure that their city council is functioning effectively. So we can pass a lot of things. So we have council chair Johnson, who passed the Civil Review Board, right? But we can't even do anything with the
You are right, Councilmember Darby. You're very right about that.
Right. We cannot do anything unless we have someone advocating on the state end for us to be able to pass legislation on a state level for us to effectively function and provide the services and things that we need for our community here in Wilmington. So I think it is so key that we have somebody down there, and for some things, just as easy. For other things, to be a lobbyist, a community organizer, going down there, talking to people, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of efficiency you have to have, organization you have to have. And as city council people who are part-time, we already have enough on our plate, right? And I feel like for us to really move forward, and I feel like this is my opinion about city council, that over the time it has become very stagnant. And I feel like it's time for us to move forward as Wilmington. We're supposed to be like the lead for the state. And unfortunately, people don't look at us that way, right? And they don't look at us as a lead where we should be. We're the leading city here. And it's time that we move forward and get things like other cities are doing and have lobbyists so that we can become effective city council people to be able to operate on different levels and to move and provide services for our people. I don't know why someone would be so against like us trying to be more effective. But I do agree that we have to have someone who's qualified. We have to go through the same process, just like anybody else will go through a process to getting hired. But I think it's really key if we're going to be city council and we want to pass things like a civil review board, but then say we don't need anyone advocating for us on a state or a county or a school board level. I think why are we proposing legislation like that then? I think we should stop proposing legislation like that then if we know that it's going to be barriers on other ends and we don't want to do anything about it.
Council Member Field, Nathan Field.
Yes. So a few points. I would like to basically second Councilwoman Loretta Walsh's points on this. I'm opposed to the idea of a lobbyist. I think it's maybe a good idea in some ways in theory, but in practice, I think it's very problematic. And here's my reasons why. Number one, the city already has a full-time lobbyist, and Councilwoman Darby just made a good point. Well, how do we know that they're lobbying for our agenda? Well, I think we have to look at, we can't just say that they have a different agenda. We have to look at specific issues where the city is lobbying, and are there actually areas where they're lobbying for something different than what we would be lobbying for? On the biggest big picture issues, I'm skeptical that that's the case. Number two, city council members are all lobbyists. We are all personal lobbyists. I find it very hard to believe that somebody that we hire on a $20,000 lobbying contract could do a better job than our individual collective efforts. All of us are presumably on speed dial with our representatives in Dover. I know I am, and I talk 3 times a week with the state senator and the House rep that I share territory with. And if I wanted to set up a meeting and to lobby anybody else that governs a part of Wilmington, it would take 1 email, and then I would quickly set up a conversation with them. That's lobbying. That's all it is. It's not that hard, and the most impact of our efforts is us directly reaching out to the people in Dover. Number 3, to second Council Member Fields' point, what's the guarantee that they're going to be any good? And I also see real issues in picking the actual lobbyist. I see just another controversial issue, and I just see real potential for this to be problematic. And finally, I just can't, I don't see what the value that this position would have. It sounds like a potentially interesting idea in theory. In practice, I see a ton of problems. And as Councilwoman Walsh pointed out, we are a part-time council. I think this is a bad idea. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Field, thank you for that. I just want to say, being part-time, I think necessitates someone who is able to help direct and guide. I worked in the General Assembly, and I worked for an education nonprofit. When the issue came up of redistricting schools, the immediate response that I had was, why doesn't City Council have a representative on this committee? And it wasn't because the administration's lobbyists, who I know, picked up the phone and made it happen. It was because I went to Representative Stephanie T. Bolden and said, Wilmington City Council needs someone on this committee after having a conversation with then President Shabazz at the time. It's a basic understanding that someone in a potential lobbyist position, someone who does government affairs, it's bigger than what's being depicted. It is having personal relationship with more than just the Wilmington delegation. And that is what we hope, you all see the value in, is someone who has connections outside of city jurisdictions and is well respected in Dover. Because I mean, and not to say anything you said I disagree with, because again, we don't want to make sure it's just a friend getting a contract. We believe wholeheartedly that there should be performance metrics incorporated. But at the end of the day, we're sending a lot of legislation down to Dover with no implementation.
All right, thank you, Chief of Staff Walker. Councilmember Gray.
Thank you. I think we're getting redundant here and going in circles, but this is unusual, but I totally agree with Councilwoman Walsh. I couldn't agree with her anymore in any other situation. This started way before 108 even got sworn in, the discussion about us having a lobbyist. And at that time, I think there was a favorite child. And this is a continued discussion of the same thing with a change of title. And as many council members have seemed not to be interested in it, I don't know why staff or administration is pushing this. And I want to point out to council that once we pass the budget, the hiring of this position is totally in the hands of the administration, of staff. Like he said, the president just needs to sign off on it. Council will not have a say as to whether the person is hired or not. Also, I totally agree with Councilman Fields that we each are lobbyists. I can't believe that we don't know 5 or 6 people, each council person, someone in Dover that they can call or email and get their attention. I mean, this is a small state. I mean, the senator lives around the corner from me. Most of you live near your representatives or know where they live. I don't see why we have to spend money to send someone down to Dover to talk to people that we already know and that we can talk to. I agree with Councilwoman Darby that we do need to follow up on resolutions we're sending, but other councils go down in group. If you're that interested in a resolution or issue, then let's get a day and go down. They only work from what, September to June or January to June. They're not even there that often. Just get together and go down there a day, and you have to find people or try to make an appointment and talk to them. I just don't think we need the money. Thank you. Need to spend the money. Thank you.
And I do want to make a clarification. Again, we go into discussion about Dover. I think there are certain misnomers. I just wanted to clear up for the public. Lobbying in itself is a profession and is very difficult. It is a separate profession than being an elected official. I can't stress this enough. Knowing someone on a speed dial is different than actually lobbying, getting a bill. And as someone, I've worked in the governor's office, I understand that. It is very, very difficult. For instance, we may agree on police oversight, but actually getting that passed takes a lot of organizations and a lot of people. So I didn't want to clear that up. That is a little bit different than just calling someone. So lobbying is a profession, people that do it full time. Council Member Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things that's being said. Thank you, Councilwoman Gray, for agreeing with me. Just a little bit of recent history. You know, we have to do redistricting every 10 years. And up until now, redistricting has been done by chairs on city council. Nobody had to go out and get hired to do it because you can get all the statistics from the state party and even the county party to put together the districts, to easily put things together. All due deference to our staff, but I want to put this out here right now because usually the chair of council runs this budget meeting. As far as not you, you're the chair of finance, so you run it, but I'm talking about the one who answers questions here. And all of a sudden we have two staff members who are answering questions. You're not here to lecture us in what our position should be. You're here to present evidence to us as staff members, not to convince us what we should or how we should or shouldn't do. That's to be done privately, not to be done on public TV, please. I just fall back again. As I stated, I lobbied in Dover 3 different times. One for a criminal justice agency, one for a government, and one for a for-profit agency. And each time was different. That yes, lobbying can be a very hard job, but most of the lobbyists down there, they're not. They have 1 or 2 clients. They have 2 or 3 big companies that do the heavy lifting lobbying for the oil companies and all the other things that are very important to people within the state. These things that we send down to the state legislature, you know, several council members are right. Each of us have personal relationships with state legislatures, tours. Ask them what they do with the resolutions they get from the local governments. That if you want your resolution really taken care of, you have to talk to one of the reps or one of the senators and say, this issue is really dear to my heart. I'm having this resolution passed in my own council, and I'm having it sent down to you. I want you to run with it. Let me know when you get it, and I'll sit down and help you navigate. But, you know, all of a sudden we've turned into this council that staff members are here to do things for everything but tie our shoes. And it's not what our job is. So please think about it. Don't think about the way I think, or don't think about the taxpayers of the city. And, you know, we have no idea what we're about to dump on their shoulders as far as real services we have to provide to this city. So I think this is just a very foolish time for us to be addressing this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I've heard a lot of pros and cons. I mean, my personal opinion, I think it's when we talk about $20,000, I don't think we're talking a whole lot. I mean, I guess it would, you know, see how the majority feels, but it has been legislation that council members have sent, even in the session 107 session, and we had to come back and reintroduce it to this session during this session because I don't even think it was touched. And so, you know, I'm kind of in between, but I mean, I don't see the harm in it. I mean, for $20,000, if we're going to have somebody to, you know, lobby, I would not say a lobbyist, but to go to Dover with some of this stuff, or even maybe not to Dover, maybe just to sit down with some council members and ask some advice about some different pieces of legislation. You know, we do have some new ones, include myself. So I wouldn't mind sitting down because you know, like I've stated before, I put send some over to the law department, just a resolution about maintaining the garden, and it took 4 months. So I don't know. So I just wanted to state that I don't see the harm in it, even though we do have friends down Dover. We could pick up the phone. I just see it goes both ways. It really, for $20,000, it's not a whole bunch of money. And I think council has really cut their budget. We've really cut our budget tremendously, especially looking at some of this stuff tonight. As a matter of fact, we even took a cut to say that we didn't even give ourselves a raise this session, which I was against, and no other department did that. So we said we would take the raise of 2022, and no other every department in the city of Wilmington has taken a break, even with COVID, and we were the only ones. So I don't think we should be so hard on ourselves with everything, just to cut out everything. I mean, could we do some other things with it? Maybe, but you know, like I said, you know, it doesn't matter to me one way or another. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Darby.
Yeah, so this will just be my last comment about it, but I just think this is important for us to move forward as a forward-thinking city council And I do want to say is I pretty much know a whole bunch of legislators down there, right? And it's different from me being able to pick up a phone than a lobbyist. And there's a lot of personal relationships in the Delaware way, which a lot of people are a part of, who connect with other state representatives who are part of that Delaware way. And it's not for the people, it's not for the community. So we're just going to keep that frank. And then we talk about being honest and transparent and staff and all this. And that's already, I don't even know why we're having that conversation. That's been out the window. And and everyone being included in the conversation when everyone has not been included in conversations about things. But I think it's really important that we have this lobbyist. So I want to put it out there. And I know pretty much everyone down there, even in Sussex County, because I lobby and do things outside of here. I'm not officially a lobbyist, but I do a lot of contact with state legislators. And it's deeper than just calling and picking up a phone because you're friends with someone down there and you're a part of the Delaware way.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Gray.
Yes, I want to make a motion to have a second to have this removed from our budget. Do I get a second?
So, there's no parliamentarian, Councilmember Gray.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, so we reviewed the budget as a whole. So this is something, again, we're just hearing pros and cons.
So how do you remove something if we do not want an item in our budget? How is it removed?
Well, there's a reconciliation process, if you want to call that. So after we get done all the hearings, I mean, stuff in the mayor's office budget will get moved. We will go through, we will take certain items out, add certain items in. That's going to be part of this next month, okay? So this is certainly, we know this is a hot issue on the table. It's on a lot of pros and cons. So this is something we'll talk about as a council. But right now, it's not like we're voting on it right now, okay?
Okay.
All right, and
we'll talk about it as council when? At a committee meeting or council floor when?
As a follow-up, there's going to be, and our council president has his hand raised, he's going to be talking about the process, but we're going to have in-depth, intense meetings like we have even leading up to this, small group meetings to talk about our amended budget, where we're going to
Also, I have a problem with the small group meetings because we're divided up so that we don't really hear from other council members. And it seems like we're divided. I'm not going to discuss how we're divided, but it's pretty apparent. So I have a problem with us being segmented away from other council members. We don't get support, or we don't get to address their opinions or have our opinions heard. It's not like we can even watch those meetings on TV to see what other council members have as opinions.
Well,
so I think it's a problem discussing, we're going to discuss it in small groups. I never know what the other small group says.
Yes, council member. And again, I can just say is how we've been operating along with council president. We've been doing small meetings just to accommodate everyone's schedule. So we don't want to violate FOIA because if we have 7+, then it's a meeting. So we've been doing it, 6 or less. And everyone's been in the pre-budget meetings so far. I think it's worked pretty well. So like I said,
I understand, but maybe they don't realize that they are missing anything. Sometimes people don't realize what's not there. And I'm saying it's not being inclusive if I don't know what my other council members think about certain subjects. I'm not saying you're not giving it to us, but it would be interesting and helpful to know what, the 7th district thinks about a subject or the 2nd district thinks about it. And I don't know that because the meetings, like you said, are small group meetings and there's no way, there's no minutes, there's no video. So I don't think that this is really transparency and inclusiveness. So I'm just commenting on the budget process that we're going through right now. Because you said we're going to go back into small meetings. Hey, thank you.
And that is duly noted. Again, I will take that into consideration. I know Chief of Staff Walker and Policy Director Bass Knight will take that into account. Actually, I believe Council President Congo has some comments.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to thank everybody for the conversation. I think it was a great dialogue. Heard a lot of pros and cons, and I think that there are some valid points on both sides. I am in support of a lobbyist. Just to kind of put it out there, I have no preference right now. I'm not sure where the the idea that there's a favorite child of who the lobbyist might be, and there may be. I just don't know who that person is. But I'm looking forward to the conversation. And I think Daniel brought up the perfect example of why we do need a lobbyist. He's been in Dover, so I think that he can speak to it better than most of us, maybe not all of us. But when he was in Dover and the administration's lobbyists did not speak up for council, he had to do that himself. And if we had our own lobbyists speaking on our behalf, because our visions don't always align with the visions of council and the administration don't always align. And I'm not trying to discount the administration's lobbyists, but we just have different visions. So I think that's the perfect reason why we need somebody advocating on behalf of what our visions are. It was brought up about the cost. I don't think that cost should really have anything to do with it. If it's not a good idea, just saying that it only costs $20,000 it shouldn't go just because it's only $20,000. But I do think that it will be money well spent if we get the right person advocating on our behalf. And as far as us being able to share with each other and know how each other are thinking, unfortunately, we're not allowed to all get together and share those ideas, because it will be considered a meeting. And that's something else that we're trying to lobby for in Dover, so that we can have these conversations and it not be considered a meeting. But in the meantime, just pick up the phone, send a text, write an email, just talk to each other. It's that easy. There's no barriers in us just talking to each other. So I just encourage us to communicate. We all have each other's information. Just pick up the phone and find out, what's on each other's mind. But again, I just think Daniel gave the perfect example of why we need a lobbyist. So I'm not gonna keep saying whatever else was already saying, but I do appreciate the conversation. But I am concerned that I'm not sure if that was directed towards me or not, about things being transparent and open, because I have tried to at least been more open and more transparent than any session that I've been a part of. So I hope that everyone understands my intentions are to be completely open and transparent about everything that goes on in council. And it was also said that staff is going to pick the lobbyists. I'm not sure if that's the case. Not if it's up to me. We're going to come together. We're going to decide as a group. And if we have to take a vote, we can take a vote. But I don't understand why anyone would think that staff would pick the lobbyists and council wouldn't have anything to do with who was advocating for council. That's not going to happen under my watch. So I'm not sure where that misinformation got started, but that's not the case. If I have anything to do with it. So please rest assured that we're not going to just pick a friend. We're not going to do it in a private, secret group. That's not what I'm about. And we're going to pick somebody who is qualified to fight for the citizens of Wilmington, like we are qualified to fight for the citizens of Wilmington. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Council President. Council Member Cabrera, who is also a pro tem, I believe. You haven't spoken.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. President and Chair. I just wanted to comment on this because I'm not opposed to the idea, but how does it look that City Council needs to have their own lobbyists for things that we're working on when we're the legislators versus the administration, who are the implementators of what happens in the city? And, are we overreaching? And I'm not saying that we don't have a right to be represented, but why can't we meet with the administration and say, these are our priorities, these are the things that we feel that we should be advocating for, and advocate for these things together with the lobbyist that gets paid all this money to do that from that side? I just, every time that I hear little things that we should be doing this and we should be doing that, it's like, yes, we're the legislators. We pass the laws. This is the most important job that we have, is to pass this budget more than anything else. That really is our job. The fact that we get involved in projects and constituent services and do other things, that speaks volumes to who we are as a council and what we do. That's not what is required. So one, are we overstepping? Two, why can't we work with the people that currently exist? Why can't we have more input? We should say, can we have more input on the lobbyist that is chosen that works for the city? Do we have to use the same people? Can we find someone else that would be more willing to work with us? And why can't we have this conversation with the mayor and say, okay, these are our concerns. This is what we would like. And we should have one lobbyist working for us. I'm in agreement with having a lawyer because sometimes, with the limited amount of time that the law department has, our resolutions and our legislation that we're trying to get done might take longer. We don't have that really one-on-one, so we could have that person there. So I am concerned about this. And Mr. President, thank you for addressing the fact that the charter says, yeah, we can't have more than 7 people in a meeting because it makes it, we have a quorum and we're not allowed to meet privately in a quorum. It's, it has to be public. Now, the president, I think he has been very transparent and he has been very inclusive. And I thank you for that, Mr. President. So you do share the concerns of other council members when you meet with the smaller groups. And I would hope that you're taking all our concerns and making an assessment as a true leader would do and sharing that with the others. So I don't think that should be a big concern. But if there's anything that really sticks out that a certain council member feels, I'm sure you would go and share that with the rest of the gang. But it is an open and transparent process. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
And I just, and again, I know we're winding down. I think we've talked many sides of this issue. I think a great point was brought up about police oversight. That is the perfect example. That there's actually inherent conflict of interest. There's actually an ethical conflict of interest because the administration, they represent the police department. As we found out, and it's just so certain things, there is an inherent conflict. So I believe Councilman Field said it as well. Certain areas, maybe we can't see on the same page. So I think that is a way as we talk as council, we can carve it out. Because like police oversight is one instance where administration might not be against us, what the legislature and the people want, but he's ethically bound to represent the department, So what do we do? So that's a perfect example, but I just we can finish off with Councilmember Oliver, and then I just wanted to move on to finishing up council's budget. So Councilmember Oliver, was there any parting words?
Sure. I'm sorry, I didn't even want to come back and comment, but I too want to say that this was some good dialogue, and we have 13 members here. And there was some pros and cons and back and forth. But I had to say I was a little remiss that Councilwoman Gray, we all can agree to disagree, but just to be trying to, because you disagree with something that, I'm glad, I think you understand this. We all have one vote, but for you to say you want to, you were abruptly trying to just say you want to take it off because you're against it. I think that's, I'm trying to say it was good dialogue, but just for you to, I thought that was selfish of you to just say, well, I'm against it and let's just remove it. No, that's not what the budget hearing is about. The budget hearing is about just what we did today. This is a democracy. We all shared our opinion. We come back in session and discuss it. But just because I disagree with something, or Councilman Darby disagree, or Harley, I'm not going to say, let's just stop this conversation. Let's be done with it. That's what we all here for, to share our opinions. That's why we were all voted in office. So I found that a little disturbing. So I just had to get that off my chest. I mean,
right. And again, I just want
that wasn't right.
Time over. And Councilmember Gray, just I think in the block government consultant.
Excuse me, I wasn't, and as a follow-up, she can call me on the phone. I want to follow up with Councilman President Congo said. Everybody has a telephone number. Feel free. We have emails. So if you want to know something, the president is always open. You have the chief of staff. If we don't know something, feel free to call each other. We text each other. We have Facebook. We know how to reach each other if it's an emergency, if you're really that interested in finding out what's going on.
Okay. And again, we're running short on time.
Sorry, I have to address that.
Council, please wait your turn. If it's quick, 30-second response. But again, let's, I think we're not all, everyone has different viewpoints. So 30 seconds.
I don't think you're going to restrict my time, but I think there was a councilwoman has a misunderstanding. I thought there could be a vote, and that was not excluding anyone and being selfish. The council, I thought, would have to vote, which is including everyone, because there seemed to be a number of people that were in disagreement, and maybe it was a majority and it could be
Not true.
removed now
Not
rather
true.
than continue the conversation. And I think I agree with Councilwoman Walsh very vehemently also that we don't need this. So it was not a selfish move at all. I thought we could vote on it, and it would have only worked if we got a majority, which is an inclusive effort, not an exclusive effort. So I think there was a misunderstanding there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councilmember Gray. And again, just to reorient everyone, especially the public, to educate on the process. As we go through these hearings, and we'll be closing soon, we are not voting on anything today. So today it's just listening to different viewpoints, just like we grilled the mayor's office about constituent services. You know, that was a flashpoint. And in certain conversations outside of this public hearing process are going to occur about what we can do. So nothing is set in stone. This is just an early proposed budget, even before we knew about American Rescue Funds. All right. So without further ado, Policy Director Bass Knight and Chief of Staff Walker, is there any other closing comments on City Council?
Chairman Johnson, no. I just want to thank all the council members for your questions and look forward to the continued dialogue as we build a responsive and successful budget.
All right, and I believe Vice Chair Harley has some closing words.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say to Marshall and to Daniel that you did a great job putting together our information, and most of what we went over today, all of this information has been floating around for the last 4 or 5 or 6 weeks or more. And so I appreciate how you put it together and how you presented it. And I just wanted to let you know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we head out, I did want to pitch it to the public. If there's any members of the public who are present that would like to comment.
Okay.
Okay, going once, going twice. All right, and as I've stated previously tonight, is that there is a public process for the first time. There's a website about the budget. It's wilmbebudget.org. So we can go online. We're trying to make it user friendly. We're improving the website as we go. Thank you very much, Ms. Bass Knight, for working on the website tirelessly. So you can submit questions, comments, as we go through the process online. All right, and I figure at this time, Council President, is there any final remarks that you have?
No final remarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, I would like to thank everyone for joining us. I would like to especially thank the public, those folks who are engaged in submitting questions. It's a very important process. It should be out and open. And also would like to thank OMB, the department heads, WITN, and just everyone who helped put this together. Again, we're still in COVID time, so everything is more difficult.
Chris, I like to say, Chris, my hand is up.
Yes.
I like to give you kudos because I'm used to seeing Bud Friel do this, but I think you handled yourself well tonight. Scale 1 to 10, I give you a 9. So you're getting there, buddy. But
all right, so I'm gonna shoot for the 10.
We'll
I
see.
appreciate it. The housekeeping measure, just so everyone stays on track. The next budget hearing is coming up this upcoming Monday, April 12th. We have 2 biggies. So we have police department at 4:30, and then it's scheduled. Then we are scheduled to go into fire department at 6:30. Now, with that being said, as you've seen tonight, we have flexibility. We just can't start fire department earlier than 6:30. But if police department goes until whenever time, then we'll take that time, as this is very important to the welfare of the city. So everyone, please stay tuned. Please continue to stay tuned to WITN channel 22 on Comcast. You can watch the meeting online at WITN22.org. And also budget information is available at www.wilmbebudget.org. Thank you very much, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, can a motion to adjourn, please?
Oh, all right. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Oh, sorry about that, Michelle.
Second.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Well, the ayes have it. And again, everyone be safe and well, and I'll see you Monday evening. Take care.
All right, great job, Mr. Chair. Good night, everyone.
Good night.